welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Scoop podcast with Sam and Jordan. Today, we're talking about America.
America.
America movies. Um, and, I think 4th of July is nigh. The country
The
is
fall of
weird.
the empire is fast approaching.
Yeah, it's weird times we're living in. This is a strange timeline. So, America's never seen a weirder timeline. So, figured we would go ahead and just come up with movies. We have 10 different categories for different things we think are American based on different, qualifiers, different subject matter. And I think you'll find that we offer a little bit of some comedy to the weirdest of times that we're in, but also we do have some pretty brainy, things to discuss in terms of our 10 categories. We did think very long and hard about this. This is well thought out, and that's not ironic.
Yeah, this is kind of an episode like we did with the presidential movie cabinet we did a few months back.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we're gonna go through these 10 categories and just go through some of these movies that we have. So the first category, and this is in no particular order, the failure of the American healthcare system.
Coming in hot.
So yeah, America is one of the only countries without free healthcare. So there's tons of movies that, well, not maybe not a ton, but there's a lot of movies that go through issues with dealing with medical care in the USA.
Or being denied medical care or struggling to get medical care. Um,
So one of my favorite movies of all time is Hot Rod, and one of the main plots is Rod has to jump to save his stepfather's heart because he needs $50,000 for his heart surgery.
which is crazy.
And that's not the only reason why I love Hot Rod, but it's part of the reason I like it because it has that in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like core essential to the plot. If we had free healthcare, you would not have Hot Rod.
Yeah, and that would. So on one hand, it stinks that we don't have free healthcare, but now we have Hot Rod at least.
We get Hot Rod out of it. Um, yeah, I think that's probably going to be our joint best choice on this list.
Yeah, I had two honorable mentions that I really like that Jordan has not seen, but the Denzel Washington movie John Q, where his son needs a $250,000 heart surgery. Again, there's another heart surgery movie. And he like abducts or like held hostage the hospital until they give him a new heart. And then Ambulance, the Michael Bay movie, where one of the main characters is also trying to save their family member, but they need money, so they have to steal a bank, and they steal an ambulance, and it's all interconnected.
Yikes. I'll mention this, but this might go into another category. I can talk about it a little bit more later. But one of the many really great Michael Moore documentaries called Sicko is pretty great. Definitely right on the nose with the subject matter. I know you haven't seen it yet, but
Well, we'll just go right into our documentaries category. Some of these movies could be in multiple categories. So yeah, we just mentioned Sicko. There's what are the other Michael Moore films you have seen?
yeah, the other two that I really like that are American, Fahrenheit 9/11 and Bowling for Columbine. Bowling for Columbine is probably my favorite. Um, definitely made me cry. Was really, really good. Just talking about the Columbine shooting and gun laws in the US right now. I also saw Fahrenheit 11/9. I think the one I still want to see is called Capitalism: A Love Story. Um, but I just haven't seen it yet. But I like Michael Moore quite a bit. Um, he adds a little bit of comedy to all of his documentaries, and he's probably the most like well-known documentarian besides like Louis Theroux, in my opinion. In terms of like uh talking about pop culture intersecting politics.
Yeah, another one we like is Andrew Callahan, Channel 5, and he has a documentary, This Place Rules, on HBO Max. And then he just also has one called Dear Kelly, which just came out last year.
That was a really good one.
And then the documentary 13th, about the 13th Amendment.
Yeah, I think
We saw that a while ago. It was really good.
I think it's like you can watch it on Netflix. I think everybody should see it. I remember 13th was one of the first documentaries I ever watched that like kind of made me think like, oh, prison bad.
Yeah, and that actually leads us to our next category. We had to combine some of these categories, so this one is the American military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex slash cops types movies. Um, so yeah, 13th could have gone in this category. What was some of the ones in this category you had?
Yeah, Apocalypse Now, you got me onto this year. Um, and I went a little nutty for it. I was like, why haven't I seen this before? This is life changing. I'm not like a war movie person at all. Like war movies, if somebody were to be like, I want to show you this war movie, you're going to love it. I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to watch that. But I'd heard some lore about the making of Apocalypse Now that was so intriguing that I basically had to watch this movie. Um, I think it's a great, just like exposition on what we're willing to do as humans at the behest of a powerful force that is telling you this is your job, you have to do this thing. And that kind of psychology is very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, we recently watched Apocalypse Now. I mean, I've seen it before, but um, that one's really good. Then I also put Platoon and Full Metal Jacket, which you haven't seen yet, but
Yeah, I've
those are some
seen
other
those.
Vietnam War movies. I think Rambo First Blood, the first Rambo movie, fits in this well because it's about PTSD of a soldier post Vietnam War, and then he gets in prison, so it's kind of like a combo of the category. Um, I really like Crimson Tide.
For some reasons, I knew you were talking about Crimson Tide, and I was like, Crimson Peak? Like,
No, the submarine movie with Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. And I would also say Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick are definitely in this category because they're not even really about any specific thing. They're just like, look at all these cool planes and Tom Cruise in America.
yeah.
And whereas like Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket are about the specifics of,
Well, they're the darker side of
yeah.
those things. Yeah. There's probably a ton of movies we could put in this category, but like, I
I
just,
think we thought about Inglorious Bastards
yes.
in this one.
Yes. I don't know if it fits neatly as like the top spot in this category, but I think it would be a good, it's definitely, America involvement for sure. Um,
And then we also watched Sing Sing recently. It's a
yeah,
good prison movie.
that was an incredible prison movie. One of maybe the best besides like, what's the other one? Uh,
Shawshank.
yeah, besides Shawshank, like if you like Shawshank back when, ye olden times when that came out, like upgrade yourself and go watch Sing Sing and it'll make you think things you've never thought before.
And then I think you had an honorable mention, V for Vendetta, which we were trying to figure out a category for.
Yes, and I do understand that V for Vendetta is inherently not American, but I do think it is a great, it's the OG fascism bad movie. And I think if you have a democracy, it's about that. Like it's, America is the most powerful quote unquote democracy right now in the world. So I think it's specific to the subject. I don't think it's necessarily American, but honorable mention, I'll say.
Okay, our next category is more of a fun one. It's titles, movie titles that are either of the word America or American in the title. So we had a couple of these. There's actually a lot. What would be the first one that you'd want to mention?
American Pie. That's a whole
Yeah,
franchise.
that might be the only franchise, I think.
I think, yes.
There's two. I really like Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. They did make a sequel of that, so that's kind of a franchise, I guess. Um,
We could say American Psycho, which has a very, very
sure.
lowbrow sequel.
American Beauty won Best Picture, but I think it's kind of aged not
It's
so great.
it's in
Uh,
my all-time favorite movies, and it's, like, one that I am growing out of the older I get.
American Fiction, which came out last year or 2 years ago, that was really good.
That was good.
Yeah, there's a few more, but I think those are kind of the best ones. Okay, the next category is another combination category. We have late stage capitalism slash American consumerism, so kind of the greed aspect of trying to make the biggest profits in capitalism when resources and the environment are dwindling, and then American consumerism, just the act of buying things and the culture and zeitgeist behind every American almost needing to buy things for America to continue. Um, my obvious selection is Wolf of Wall Street,
I think
which
is the fair,
which
like,
because
most
it's so what's the word? It's like 3 hours long and like it's almost like it's beating you over the head of how much money Leo's making and the lifestyle change, and it's like in the 80s mostly, which is kind of when the peak of US capitalism kind of happened, I would briefly suggest.
that's when, like, a lot of the norms that we expect now were established in terms of, like, corporate life, and I think that's when, like, Wall Street and, like, that job as a job really soared was, like, in the '80s. I mean, it's no surprise that, like, that's when, like, coke addiction soared, is, like, I have to do more to keep up so that I can have everything.
Yeah, what did you have for this category? I think you had American Psycho.
Yeah, I mean, American Psycho technically fit into the American titles bracket, but, um, I think it's so funny to me that the, like, nastiest, raunchiest of incel boys use,
Electric Baby.
Patrick Bateman as, like, their symbol of masculinity and sigma male mindset, grindset, when, like, the actual movie itself is, like, first of all, directed by a woman, and adapted from a queer man. Like, a queer man wrote the book, and it's about the comedy, it's a dark comedy about clawing your way to the top in corporate America and selling your soul to do basically anything to be successful. And I just think it's so funny that people are like, I'm just like him. And I'm like, that is not what you want to be, my guy. That is, you are not the Joker you think you are. um so I mean, I love it. I think it's horrible, gruesome, and kind of funny. Actually, really funny.
Yeah, yeah, that was one that could go into a lot of categories. I also had The Big Short.
Mm.
Um, and as far as like more of like the consumerism, we put Barbie, Jingle All the Way
That's
is a
such a
good
good example
one.
for this one.
Arnold's trying to get a toy for his son. And
He
then,
literally, the kids, like, each sold separately, batteries not included, because he's seen the commercial so many times. That is indicative of
yeah.
capitalism.
And then I put a 1973's cartoon Robin Hood movie.
Mhm.
We gotta steal from the rich and give to the poor.
That literally just belongs in a secret 11th bracket of just, like, covertly socialist
Class
movies.
warfare.
Class warfare, yeah, the Robin Hood goes there.
You can also say like The Social Network,
Mm.
maybe Borat, because it's kind of poking fun at America.
Yeah, I think, uh, The Social Network is a great one to add to this because with late stage capitalism comes the tech oligarchy that The Social Network basically spurned.
Yeah. Okay, next category is American Way of Life.
This is a fun one.
This is like mostly movies about characters that live in America. within the movie, and either just are going about their day-to-day lives, or it's kind of a snapshot of one section of America at a certain time. But um, my pick was Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee's movie. Just a great like one day encapsulation of a part of America and all the faults and that go with it. Um, what was your pick?
I was
There's a
gonna
lot of choice. There's a lot of them.
I would have also picked Do the Right Thing, I think. But there's so many good honorable mentions on this list, but I feel like everything you said about Do the Right Thing is I think it's if you're gonna take a snapshot of any part of America, that's, like, just one of the most poignant, impactful ones to do. Um, so I would have to agree. Second to that, totally same level of highbrow art cinema would be Harold and Kumar. Um,
Yes. And even the second one, they go to Guantanamo Bay and talk with George W. Bush, so that one's even more American. You had Talladega Nights.
yeah, I think Talladega Nights is, like, in 2006, it's, like, peak raunch comedy, peak that we have free speech, we can say any kinda dumb joke we want, like, it may not be
It's
directly American, but it's
Yeah,
tied.
it's not my favorite Will Ferrell movie, but yeah, just the amount of corporate sponsorships and product placement, which NASCAR inherently has, but they just like turn it up in this movie.
Another great one is Election, just about election politics and campaigning psychology. I think it's, like, just such a funny movie. Um, yeah.
These kind of group together, but Boyhood, Lady Bird, Francis Ha, and Moonlight, and even Patterson,
Mm, more like
very
slice of
character
life.
driven specifics,
Mhm.
but um,
All somebody trying to make it in a different
yeah,
capacity. Somebody's trying to make it into college. Somebody's trying to make it at as, like, a middle class bus driver, trying to make it as a boy in America. Like, there's a lot of different ways of, yeah, looking at those. I think maybe another one, would be
Miss Congeniality.
yeah,
You had that here.
yeah. So, I think, there's a lot of American iconography, obviously, because it's the Miss America pageant, um, but there is a lot of, like, having to kinda schmooze in order to work your way to the top of this competition and having to sell yourself out, which I think is intrinsic to the American way of life. Um, also just I don't know why, but, like, I just think of them wearing those, Statue of Liberty costumes at the very end, doing the choreography to One in a Million, like, that's what I think of on 4th of July.
Okay, I think the next category is American Expressionism.
Now explain what the difference is between this and the other categories, 'cause this one we had, like, a hard time
So the last
pinning.
category was American Way of Life, which is like characters living in America and how they live. American Expressionism is more of these are more like filmmaker driven almost, like America as a theme or as an allegory or as a backdrop or just like this is an American film. Like we've got The Wizard of Oz, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future, David Lynch's Blue Velvet. We would put in here. You wanted to put A Bug's Life
I
in
would
this
put A Bug's
one.
Life in this one because I think what is a better movie for kids than explaining how society works at large by explaining it through bugs and explaining what the bad guys do and how they strategize? I think it's interesting. I think it's a big-brained movie, and I think it's also
Yeah,
American.
there's a lot of little intricate plots within A Bug's Life I
Mm,
like.
mhm, mhm. I love that you mentioned Blue Velvet. I'll never stop talking about Blue Velvet. There's nothing more American than Blue Velvet. It's
We
beautiful
just
and gross.
we recently saw The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin's film.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of expresses fascism in a way. Like there's like a fictional country involved, but
It's
uh,
very obviously spoofing and, like, making
and it was like
direct
right,
fun of Adolf
yeah.
Hitler.
And then kind of not opposite necessarily, but like another fictional futuristic film, Civil War by Alex Garland,
I really liked that one.
and he's I believe a British man, so it's like more like his outside take of what America could be, or how he sees it.
You also put Get Out.
Oh yeah, Get Out by Jordan Peele. Again, you could argue that could go into American Way of Life, but I feel because it like takes the viewer down different levels of the film, like when he like goes through the couch or the chair in the black space. I forget what it's called. Okay, number 8, biopics on American figures. So my number 1 is Oppenheimer, just because I really liked it and it came out recently.
It's
um
pretty epic of a movie to see in IMAX.
yeah, and I think it had, because it's dealing with the atomic bomb and the ending of World War II, it was a very big American figure to make a movie about. Um, we had a few honorable mentions. I know there's a lot of other movies, but we had Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, Malcolm X, Selma, and then we recently watched The People versus Larry Flint with
He
Woody Harrelson.
which is just a guy in America, but it ends up going all the way, his case goes to the Supreme Court, which is pretty high up. So, I was surprised at how funny that one was, but I liked it.
I think, yeah, and it's also like a good judicial element of America to represent in these movie or in all these movies we're talking about.
Mhm.
Um, okay, next category, American propaganda.
This is packed. We have a ton in here.
So this is like either it's ironically pro-America or it's poking fun and being a satirical view of America and understanding the different issues with America. Or it's just like dumb America good movie. Um, the number 1 we had was They Live
Mm.
by John Carpenter. Just literally tons of propaganda within the movie.
Well, and it talks about like the artifice of propaganda and like what are people trying to do with propaganda and like the psychology of that, which I find interesting. Um, and it's actually really fun. Like it was such a fun movie. I just recently watched it for the first time with you.
Yeah, then we have so I put all the Captain America movies specifically. Um, you could argue a lot of superhero movies are propaganda based, but to have a guy just with an American shield running around is pretty propagandic to me. And then I put Rocky and Rocky 4.
But not 2 and 3.
Well, you could put the whole franchise, but Rocky, the first one, is kind of almost an American expressionism movie, but then it leads into Rocky 4, which is like USA versus USSR. Um, then we also have National Treasure, which is just like
America has secrets.
ridiculous America stuff.
Oh, we gotta rewatch that. We gotta steal the
You
Declaration
wanted
of
to do
Independence.
Starship Troopers, which isn't really American, but it's definitely propaganda.
Well, it's military propaganda too, and that was a fun time. That was a really fun time. Denise Richards, like, it kinda has to be in the conversation. I don't know if it's my number 1, but I think it's a great, uh, propaganda movie in general.
We also recently watched Dick with
Incredible.
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, basically, what would happen if, Nixon had 2 teenage dog walkers that basically were the ones at the crux of Watergate, and it's so funny and cute, and, like, girls just wanna have
It's
fun.
also funny opposite All the President's Men, which is like the serious drama film that was like Oscar nominated about the Watergate scandal. Um,
That cracks me up.
I really like Air Force One because it's fictional, but it's just like, what if Harrison Ford was the president and Gary Oldman was a terrorist hijacking Air Force One? And it's just like, we like America. We're gonna root for the American president, and that's the movie. Um,
You know, you didn't mention this, and we didn't discuss this ahead of time, but, like, isn't Mission Impossible
mm, I thought about it, but
I
it's
think maybe this last
technically
installment.
um yeah, it's technically an American offshoot of the CIA, so it is American, but most of what they're doing is international
Mm.
spy stuff. But yeah, it could definitely go in one of these categories. But yeah.
I don't think it's number 1. It feels pretty American, though.
Okay, last category is the American Dream. And I had an American Tail, the animated mouse movie, because they're actually going to America to have the American Dream and survive.
American melting pot type of vibes. Um,
And then I also had Taxi Driver as kind of like, what if someone pursued the American Dream in a way that a lot of people might find
reprehensible.
yes, but nonetheless. And then you had two good picks.
Yeah, so I think maybe my number 1 pick for this category has to be Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Um, One of my favorite movies of all time. Basically, the entire subject matter of the movie and the thesis of the movie is about the American dream and finding it profane to succumb to that way of life and sort of, Hunter S. Thompson, in a way, the author of the original book, sort of was like a ethical drug addict in a way. Like, he was just like, well, if they're gonna do that to pursue the American dream, why don't I just like get high every day and like go insane and just buy a bunch of guns? Like, that's what I want to do with my life. So, um, but yeah, also a really funny movie. Like, I love a good drug fiction. Fiction, I guess it's like partially a true story, but it's fun to watch the screen bend and it's like quite psychedelic. Um and, as bad as Johnny Depp is of a person, this is probably one of his best roles that he's maybe most known for. And he, like, lived in Hunter's basement to be able to study him and his, like, movements and, like, understand how he walked, which I think is cool. And my second pick is also right up at that, like, tier of being great American Dream movie that we both just recently saw, a smaller movie called SLC Punk. Um Great grunge aesthetic, great use of breaking, like, the fourth wall to narrate. Matthew Lillard is just an American gem. Um, and you know what? Maybe he's Canadian. Is he Canadian?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, now I gotta look. But,
It's set in Salt Lake City, Utah.
yeah, yeah. Um, I don't think he's Canadian. He feels Canadian in my mind. Anyway, all I'm saying is that the movie is very good at portraying the feelings that somebody has when they're, like, growing up in a as a minority per se, being that you're, like, you're a pariah to society as a punk or, I think every generation has had that. For us, it was, like, emos and scene kids, and in the '90s, it was the punks. Um, but I think
Matthew Lillard born in Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, thank goodness. I can call him an American gem still.
We don't have to delete that part of the podcast. Um, yeah, that's kind of. I didn't really have any other honorable mentions for American Dream. That was kind of all of our categories.
I think that was. I don't think I forgot to mention any. Oh, I forgot to mention Megalopolis.
Oh yeah, what category was that one?
I don't know. I mean, I guess late stage capitalism, kind of. It's like the ridiculousness.
Or American Expressionism.
For those with eyes to see, I think it is American Expressionism.
Yes.
You're right. I think that was it. That's all I kind of had. I really wanted to make sure we talked about Talladega Nights.
Yeah, that was a late edition by you.
Had to be in there. It's essential to all American film watching. You must watch it to be a citizen.
Well, thanks for listening.
And happy 4th of July soon, I guess.
Bye.
Bye.